And there we go.
So our question to you today is, what is your big gay dream? Like your biggest, gayest, hugest dream. That's the subject of episode 20 of the Queer Money podcast.
27.
27, sorry. And consequently, the episode 27 of the Queer Money follow-up series that we're doing here on YouTube. We want to know, what is your big gay dream? For that episode, we talked with Megawatt, also known as Megan Watt, about how to turn your someday goals, as she calls them, into reality in 60 days. She wrote this lovely little book, Discover, Act, Engage. You can't really see the engage part.
Yeah, there we go.
She wrote that several years ago, and what it is really is a prescription on how to reach your biggest goals, mostly focused around career goals, but you can apply that to any type of goal in 60 days. And so when David and I re-engaged with this episode today, what kind of came back to us was, the fact that so many LGBTQ people and gay men specifically, we seem to be very siloed in what we think our opportunities are. Not only do we get, affirmations or restrictions put on to us by school and by society and by our teachers and by our parents about what we should do, right? The normal path of a secure and safe life, right? Go and get a corporate job and you try to work for that corporate job for a millennia and then retire supposedly unhappy at some particular point in time. But that, even for the general population, that isn't really a prescription for success. And then, so when many of us sort of want to deviate from what the norm is, then we have another realm of restrictions put on us by our LGBT community. And there are the safe careers that we're allowed to choose, right? We're allowed to be hairdressers or stylists. We're allowed to be makeup artists. We're allowed to be actors and actresses and singers, all the sort of more of the creative things. And we don't really highlight and celebrate a whole lot of the people in the LGBT community who sort of blaze their own trails and do their own thing and kind of deviate from what the norm is, whether it's the norm put on to us by society or the norm put on to us by our LGBT community.
Yeah, I think it wasn't last year, but I think it was 2 years ago or maybe even 3 years ago now. I looked at the Out 100 list, and that is that Out magazine talks about the most influential people in the LGBT community, the top 100, and it was ridiculous. It was something like 80% of them were individuals who were in entertainment and advocacy, mostly entertainment.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking to myself, there are so many queer people doing amazing things outside of the entertainment industry, and we don't celebrate them. I mean, I think of Martine Rothblatt. Martine Rothblatt is a trans woman who started Sirius XM satellite, who then found out that her daughter had a debilitating genetic illness, created a company that was able to biohack her disease, then has used that methodology to now go out and create multiple types of disease-fighting, biohacking idea or not remedies, not just pharma, but lots of different methods that are helping individuals. And we hear about Martine Rothblatt. We know about her because we see her in the business world, but our community doesn't celebrate individuals like that the way they celebrate individuals that are very showy, right? Very out there and being fabulous. Great, let's celebrate those individuals, but there's so many other dreams that many of us have. And I think that sometimes some of us feel somewhat maybe minimized by the fact that our community doesn't celebrate the industries or the avenues in which we want to or have a passion in.
Yeah, and I think, we talk a lot on the Queer Money podcast and on this Queer Money follow-up series about how it's easier to dream about being something or doing something when we see that others are doing it. It's easier to think that retirement is within our realm of possibility if we see marketing and collateral that includes LGBTQ people and not just the straight white couple walking down the beach with their golden retriever. So to that end, and you kind of twist that a little bit, we should be celebrating LGBTQ people who are in all industries, who are doing all sorts of things, and not just celebrities.
Right.
And as we've talked about as well, is our community is focused on the 3 Ps: penis, politics, and pop culture. And we're obsessed with pop culture and celebrity. And so that's who we celebrate. But I mean, I don't agree with it, but you say I can't sing. Clearly, I'm not going to be able to ever become a singer, right? Neither of us are actors. So if that's not our talent, if that's not our gift, and we don't see out there in the world people like us doing what it is our dream is, then we kind of think we self-select out. We kind of say that, well, clearly that's not for me because otherwise somebody else would be doing it, or I could see myself in someone else, and I don't. And so I just don't even try. And that's kind of what one of the biggest challenges that we talked about in achieving your biggest, gayest dream is to, one, kind of break down that facade that it is within your realm of possibility. It is. You have to believe that it is for you. Sure. So we're going to share a few tips on how to implement and execute on your biggest, gayest dreams here in 60 days. Before we do that, though, please give this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel, and then set notifications on this channel so that you know when we do these Queer Money Lives, and you can join in on the conversation.
Yeah, let's go back to that question, though. What is your biggest gay dream? And we can drop the gay, right? Because although for some of us, our dreams are really focused on being a queer individual, right? We want to be a queer designer. We want to be known for who we are. I think of Sophie, who passed away this week, was very prominently known a lot because of the fact that she was a trans woman, right? And so the fact is that there are dreams that we have that are centered around us being queer, but there's also a lot of other dreams. We're told over and over again by maybe our parents, our schools, even our community, do you do you, right? But then it sometimes feels like we're confined within this box.
Yeah, you do you as long as it fits in here.
Exactly. And we want you to get rid of the box, right? Do what it is that you feel comfortable. And it was summed up really well in this quote by Megan, where she said, "There's no better bet in the world than betting on yourself," which John and I had a very interesting discussion around this. And maybe I'm curious what your thoughts are. Do you think that especially queer folks, but gay men especially, do you think that we have sometimes stopped betting on ourselves because we don't feel like we can be successful? Are we limiting our dreams because we no longer believe that we are the ones that we should be betting on? Instead, we're betting on the success of somebody else. We're hitching our dreams, our hopes of success on someone else. It's an interesting concept because I think a lot of people, and I know I myself did this for a long time, I just didn't feel like, I felt like the only way I could be successful was if I got that corporate job, if I climbed the corporate ladder. That was my only path to success. But then I realized at some point that what I was doing was limiting who I was, which meant that I was never really going to truly be successful because my success didn't lead to my happiness.
Exactly. So we're going to share 4 tips that we suggest to try to execute on your big gay dream. The first has 3 subpoints. The first is do the inner work, and there's lots of bundled up in that, but you've got to really work on yourself, get to know yourself, overcome limiting beliefs, and start to do the exercises it takes to actually believe that you can fulfill whatever it is you've been put on this earth to do. So the first subpoint to that is know thyself. And know thyself is a Delphic maxim that was inscribed on the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. And what that means is to really get centered and in tune and in touch with who you are and what it is that you want. We're barraged so often with social media and what other people think and the media that we kind of get lost into actually what it is that we truly want. It almost gets to the point where it's diluted and we can't actually connected with that. So know thyself. The second subpoint there is to work on overcoming limiting beliefs. And we've talked about this particular topic on many different platforms, Career Money Podcast and the Career Money follow-up series. So we encourage you to watch the number one hurdle to your success, which is the Career Money follow-up episode 16, or listen to episode 16 of the Career Money Podcast.
We'll link to that episode in the comments below.
Exactly. And then one of the exercises that we've used, and we've kind of gotten out of this habit, this is the third sub-point, is to start to do affirmations. We talked about the benefits of reciting affirmations on episode 245 with Evolve Benton of the Boy Meets Wellness podcast. And they talked about how they and their learners use reciting affirmations to change their subconscious thinking that helps them overcome their limiting beliefs, similar to the second subpoint. And then they've used that to execute on what their big gay or queer or ungendered dreams are.
Yeah. It's interesting when you just think about those couple of things. If you get to know yourself a little bit better and you try to discover a little bit about what it is that you really want, what you really want, and then you start to maybe break down some of the things that prevent you from doing that, it opens up opportunities. I think about just that idea of I think that I can, I believe that I can do this, really can start to turn the wheels of motivation, right? When you truly believe that you can do something or that it's an opportunity for you, there are, I think especially of individuals in the African American community who for so long felt like they could not be successful because that there was this overwhelming white supremacy that would constantly come along and steal that success. Once they started to believe that, it started to catch on in the community. Individuals started to see other people being successful, and I think that's what we need ourselves, is we need to catch that fire in ourselves, and one of the best ways to do that is through affirmations, because you're constantly putting it into your subconscious that I can do this, I am going to do this, I have the abilities, I will find the way to do this, and I'm going to go out and create this.
Yeah, we talk a lot about how the first hurdle that most of us have to get over is the belief that we can actually do something. Yeah. It's that belief, and there's the argument that's made by motivational speakers, religious gurus, all sorts, that talk about you were put on this earth to do something. More and so often most of us kind of get disconnected from that because we think that there are these limited options of what we can or are allowed to do, that we lose touch with what it is that we were put on this earth to do. And then even when we can kind of uncover what that is, we sort of forget that, well, I was only given that dream or that belief because I was supposed to do it, and we don't think that we don't believe that we can do it. So it's overcoming the disbelief that we can actually do something.
Right. So point number 2 is to uncover your why. We touched on this just a little bit in what we were talking about in number 1, but uncovering your why is really the driver, right? Why are you doing this? And sometimes you need to take small steps to get there, to figure out what your why is. And when you figure out what your why is, you start to see what the path forward is, right? When you know that you want to become a doctor, you start to understand that there are certain steps that you have to take to become a doctor. And then you can start to chip away at those. If you want to become a drag queen, right? So then you know what the path is, you know the steps. You start to uncover those. You start to find a mentor. You start to find the things that you need to do. And one of the interesting things that we talked about on this episode with Megan was the quote from, and you're going to have to remind me where this comes from, The One Thing.
The book, The One Thing.
Right. And that whole the whole idea behind that is uncovering when you look at all of the options that are out there, uncover the ones that will get you there as quickly as possible, that make other things less important. You probably can say this better than me.
Yeah, well, it's right there in the notes. What's the one thing you can do such that by doing it makes everything else unnecessary or unimportant? So very often, the thought process is that very often we have this big dream. But then we think that there are the millions of things that we have to do to actually get there. And there may actually be millions of things to do to get there, but we get so scared about the size of the elephant that we forget, how do we actually chip away at achieving that dream. So, one of the suggestions is to, when you figure out what your goal is and you figure out what your why is, then figure out what the small steps are to take to get there. So grab a piece of paper, write down all of the things that you've got in your head that you think that you must do in order to get to your dreams. And you can come up with anywhere from 3 to 1,000 steps. But then go ahead and highlight what are the 3 to 5 most critical, most effective steps to actually start working on your dreams. Itemize those in chronological order, what the most important to the least important, and focus then on the one singular most important thing to help you get to your dream. Complete that, and then move on to the second thing. Complete that and move on to the third, so on and so forth. And the idea is that because you focus on the most important things, the items that are down at 999 might not be actually necessary or important at all. Or that's something that you can actually contract or farm out for somebody else to do. You focus on what's most important and start to take those singular steps to actually achieve your dream, as opposed to trying to figure out how do I do all the things at one time to get to where I want to go.
Well, and there's so many things out there to do, right? So let's take, for example, you want to start a business. Well, you have to have a website. You have to have a social media presence. You have to have a product, or you have to have a service. And there's, oftentimes when we want something, we want some level of success, we look at people who are successful, and then we immediately say, okay, I'm going to do everything that they're doing.
Right.
But when we try to do everything that they're doing, and we talked about this in the podcast, we're comparing our chapter 1 to their chapter 17, right? We want to get to where they're at right now, so we try to do everything that they're doing right now. Well, when they started, they didn't start by doing all of those things, right? They started by doing 1 or 2 things or 3 things successfully, and then they built on that success. It's like building the foundation. And the same thing goes with our dreams. What is it that we really want? We have to build a foundation for those dreams, and then we can add on to make that true, whatever it is that we're building.
Right. And then when you're comparing your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 17, you forget that while they're in their chapter 17, not only have they built the credibility and everything else that took to get to where they are, but now they've also got a team, right? So they've got people who are executing on some of the things that are required to reach the level of success that they're at. Whereas, when you're in your chapter 1, it's very likely it's just you.
Yeah.
You don't have a team of people who can help you do all of those extra things that are great to do and may be helpful. And that's why it's important to focus back on the one thing. If you have a team of people from the get-go, well, then maybe you can actually focus on 10 things. But most of us don't have that luxury. So that's why it's important to sort of to peel back the onion and focus on the simple things first that we can use to move forward. And then maybe over time, we've built the infrastructure, we've built the credibility, and we've also been able to build up a team to be able to start to do more and more things. Right. Tip number 4 here, and this is something that Megan shared on the podcast that she learned from a mutual friend of ours, Adam Carroll, of the Build a Bigger Life podcast, who says, one of the most powerful things that we can do to execute on our big gay dreams, he says big dreams, is to connect with our Power 100. And so what's your Power 100? Well, those are the people within your circle of influence who know, like, and trust you. And usually we have enough connections to help us find the job that we want, or to take that next step that we want to our dream, or who have already achieved the dream or a dream similar to what we want to achieve that we can learn from. So leverage your Power 100 to try to expedite you reaching your dreams. Leverage your power of connection. Now, not everybody has 100 contacts, so maybe it's 20. Execute and connect with your 20 and have them connect with their 20, and then all of a sudden you've got your 100. And when I heard that, it reminded me of a popular quote of Mel Robbins, who says, "You already have everything you need for success." And the idea is that you weren't given an inspiration for whatever it is that your dream is unless you had the capability of actually doing it. And very often we think that, well, I don't have the social media presence. I don't have the blog. I don't have the media credentials. I don't have all, whatever it is that we think that we need to have to reach the dream that we have. We think that we don't have all those things. And you actually you have enough, whether it's the technology, the financing, the experience, the age, whatever, the credentials to be able to reach your dreams. And you can actually use what you have to start getting there. Well, all of that will be compounded on itself and help you get there much more easily over time.
And I think that one of the fallacies that we have in our head is we go, well, I want to have the success that somebody that is out there, they're in their chapter 17. I want to have that level of success. And we think to ourselves, okay, I don't have everything that I need to be able to be that successful.
Right.
And so we don't ever start. But the thing is we always have everything that we need to be able to start on our path to success. And for some people, their path to success starts further along than yours because of their circumstances. But there are also people that you are further ahead of on your opportunity to success. Think about the skills that you already have, from the jobs that you have, from the people that you know, the connections that you have. One of the things that John and I love, the quote from Jim Rohn that says, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You can tap into the people around you to gain those types of skills. Why do drag queens all hang out together? Right? Why do they sit in their groups? Why do they have their kikis, right? They do that because they learn from each other. What are your dreams? Are you hanging around with the people that have those kinds of dreams? Are they the majority of your group of friends or your mentors or your colleagues? Are those the kind of people you're surrounding yourself with? Because that will help you build that Power 100. That will help you build that connection, that network of people.
Yeah, exactly. Hal Elrod says in The Miracle Morning, look at other people's success to see what's possible. Now, it may be at this point in time that there isn't an LGBTQ person that is doing or is successful doing what it is that you want to do. But maybe you're supposed to be that LGBTQ person who's the inspiration for someone else who's coming behind you. So who can you relate to? Is there a straight person who's successful in doing what it is that you want to do? How can you emulate, mirror, and aspire to be more like them? Not to be them, but to achieve their level of success. And then when you reach your level of success in that industry or that career or whatever it is, then you can become the inspiration to the LGBTQ person who wants to mirror whatever it is, the career path or success path that you've traveled on. And I would argue, also with Jim Rohn's quote, you are the average of the 5 people you spend your most time with. The question is, and I think a lot of LGBTQ people need to ask ourselves this question, who are we spending our time with? Are we spending our time with people who are trying to build something bigger in their life, who are trying to be something bigger and better? Or are we spending our times with, negative Nancys or negative Nathans who are chipping away at our soul, who are more concerned about tearing other people down than lifting other people up?
Well, and they may not be necessarily that we're surrounding ourselves with negative people, right? It may be that we're just not surrounding ourselves with people who have any sort of drive or motivation to want to achieve something. Right? They may just be stuck, right? Or they themselves may be coasting, or they just are not at that point in their life. And that's going to happen to all of us. It happens to every single one of us. We get to a certain point in our life where we plateau, and then maybe we take off again. But are you trying to find people who are on that path of trying to improve, especially in an area where you have your passions and your dreams and your desires in?
Right. And it doesn't mean that you have to cut anybody out of your life. It just means that we need to be judicious about who we spend the bulk of our time with. and focus on trying to spend more time with people who are going to lift us up and make us better versions of ourselves, people who are trying to build something better of themselves and achieve some level of success, whatever that is. It doesn't necessarily mean we all need to be aspired to be the president of the United States or an Oscar-winning actor, or even the makeup artist for an Oscar-winning actor, but who are just finding people who are trying to be the best versions of themselves. And I would argue that very often we get sucked into hanging out with people who aren't necessarily doing that. Yeah. So thank you for joining us for another Queer Money follow-up. Here's your Queer Money follow-up takeaway from this particular episode. Please subscribe to the Queer Money podcast at debtfreeguys.com/QM. Then let us know in the comments below, continue the conversation. Let us know if what it is your big gay dream is. We'd love to hear what you're aspiring to do and to be. And maybe there's a way for us to use this platform to connect with our Power 100. Then join us tomorrow for episode 28, when we talk about the 3 big money mistakes that most of us make and how to fix them, most importantly. Lastly, give us this video a thumbs up. Please subscribe to this channel and then set notifications on this channel so you can join in on these Queer Money follow-up discussions. Thank you, and we will see you tomorrow.